Good. That's funny. I just seem to be hearing sounds locally and not through the HDMI. All right. Yeah, I'll probably get through the day. As usual, the sound is baffling. But anyway, so we got about 10 minutes before the official start time. I just thought I'd mention some news articles. There were quite a few good ones. So this one came out a while ago. It is, you cannot jailbreak modern iPhones, not very well at all. And yet a small number of researchers are able to find good things. And the way they do it, that's you, right? Okay, good. The way they do it is by stealing stolen property from Apple. That's how you do it. Apple has development phones that are not locked down, and they keep them inside Apple, and people steal them and sell them on the black market, and that's how hackers get in. And this is very dangerous. Apple will really prosecute you for these things. So it's very different than the previous jailbreaks where Apple will not do much. So this has leaked out. This is how the latest generation of iPhone hackers have found out how to get in. There's no longer any practical way in normally. This is a very good book I've been reading. I'll be using it in my 160 class next semester if indeed I'm able to offer it. The chaos at the college continues. They're trying to cut the budget drastically, and no one knows what's going to happen next semester yet. But anyway, if I do get to teach the class, we'll use this book as part of it. This is very good. This goes through the cyber war involving the hack of the Democratic National Committee and many other Russian attacks and Chinese attacks, and it's very interesting to read. And of course, American attacks. There's a third person now apparently cured of HIV. This is pretty exciting, of course. There's been no cure until recently, and these are just the first few examples of people that appear to be cured, and the medical community is arguing about it and trying to make sure it's really true, but that might be the beginning of the end of HIV. That would sure be great. The NSA has had a snooping program of collecting all the metadata from all the phone calls in America ever since 9/11, and apparently they have finally decided to shut it down. Some cynical people like me would probably assume all this means is they're hiding it and lying about it, but perhaps they're actually shutting something down. Anyway, it's an interesting issue. I think one thing about this program is...
Finally, I can hear them.
Let's see. One thing about this program is that it, I'm trying to mute all again because I seem to be getting a weird echo. Anyway, one thing about this program is it apparently never did any real good. All it did was flood the NSA with tons and tons of data, and they couldn't find the valuable data in all that junk. So it really wasn't worth the bother anyway. Samsung Galaxy S10 was supposed to have a cryptocurrency wallet on your phone, and they trumpeted this, but the version that has actually come out has only Ethereum and not Bitcoin, and various people are arguing about what that means. The Bitcoin enthusiasts, of course, would like to think everyone's going to have Bitcoin on their phone and use it for normal payment, and so far that has been a failure, just like Linux on the desktop. It's something that a certain number of religious zealots want, and the rest of the world just doesn't care. Similarly, there's a story about Vitalik Buterin. Find it when I get there. Maybe I'm not going to find it. Yes, this North Korea, this is one I've heard quite a bit. North Korea has funded their government entirely through stealing cryptocurrency online, and apparently something like $1 billion in virtual currency. They're one of the main sources of hacking. It's how they survive, by theft. And I guess we'll get that other one when it shows up. When I moved to California, I was amazed to come across the anti-vaxxers. They're all around me. When I got my flu shot, something like 2 out of 3 of my friends said, "Oh no, I'd never get a flu shot, that's poisonous." It is a big thing out here to believe, as part of some general liberal attitude that everything the government does is wrong, that the flu shot is killing you. And this is now really spreading across the nation. 20 states are now going to have anti-vaccination bills, and we now have measles outbreaks. And this kind of, you know, when I was younger and more naive, I thought that education would cure superstition, but all it does is squeeze it around like toothpaste. You move from believing in witches to believing in hackers, and then from believing in hackers to believing that vaccines are killing you. The total amount of stupidity always seems to be the same. All you do is move it from one place to another. So here's a chat coming in. What if I'm a religious zealot? The flu shot made me sick. Toothpaste is tainted too. Well, there you go. You are of course entitled to your opinion in America, but I don't agree. But certainly you're entitled to your opinion, and maybe you'll see some good here. This is sort of like the people who voted for Trump. I wasn't very much in favor of that either. But there were absolutely a lot of people that think he's wonderful and they want him in there. So, well, good. These things may all come together. I hope I'm not being too harsh on him. I'm certainly in the sort of, anyway, it is a very strange issue in America. And we're currently living through one of the several times we've had a big fight over fundamental issues of truth. Studying history helps me get more perspective about it anyway. Anyway, this GIDRA is out. I demonstrated it in an earlier class. This is awesome, and it'll be in my classes next semester, 126 primarily. This is a replacement for IDA Pro. The NSA wrote this, and they released it Tuesday at RSA. I don't know why. It's a wonderful tool. I don't know why they gave it away to everyone for free, but I'm glad they did. This is a Java-based tool, so it runs on every operating system. And what this does is let you unpack compiled programs right down to source code, which has been very difficult to do before. The only programs that do it badly, and they're very expensive. And GIDRA is free and does a good job. So I have some homework from one of my other classes where you have these crack me files, and they're just little password guessing games. So you have to guess the password, but you don't know what it is. And there are many ways to go into a compiled file and find the passwords. But the point of GIDRA is that it lets you import the file and then take it right down to readable C code. Right here, you can just see more or less the real C code where it says, do a string comparison between parameter 2 and top secret. You can see the password right there. So that is very nice. And the other tools available to do this have been very hard to use and very expensive. So it's a big step forward for malware analysis and for many other purposes of reverse engineering. Isn't Java really bad? Yes. Java, especially the Java virtual machine in browsers, has been a huge security flaw. This Java is not, I think, as big of a risk because you're running it locally and not through a browser extension. But yes, many people are in fact whining and complaining that the NSA is evil to write this thing and make it based on Java. Other people are trying to say they put some backdoor in it and they're spying on you. And so far, no one has found proof of that. And I don't know if any of that is true, but just from a viewpoint of analyzing malware, it is much easier than the other tools. And that's, of course, my issue. Teaching at the level I do, my number one goal is just to find some way to make this stuff easier. And I'm very glad for this tool. It'll be a big part of my classes next semester. And I ought to mention, assuming...
over the top, there's a network functionality tool in there, then you know there might be.
There might, people have tried to say that.
Network tool. If there's a network related tool in there, then, and it has the function, then you sort of know that it's possible.
Well, people are trying to argue that. Anyway, this is what is planned for next semester, although nothing is final because there's a huge budget problem and they're still trying to encourage people to retire, and whether we get to teach what we expect to teach depends on how many people retire, and no one knows yet. But if this goes as expected, then I'll be teaching 126 and 127 next semester, and those are my most technical binary assembly language oriented classes, and GIDRA will be in there along with other tools like IDA Pro and Ollie Debug and such. So those are the classes. If you're really interested in assembly language and binary code exploitation, these are the two classes to take. This is the defense and this is the offense at the binary level. Where not very many people want to go. You go there because you like math and logic. And some students really like that, but a lot of them would rather avoid it. All right, let's see what's happening here. Yeah, Keystone project was part of the backdoor set. They released this to counter the Keystone backdoors. Oh, good, thank you. I did not know about that, but certainly that is one, it certainly is a public service to stop malware of all kinds if they give us a good reverse engineering tool. And so that's a good thing. From that point of view, it's very good that they did. And that's what I'm planning to do with it. All right, so that's the smart alarms in cars, in quite a few brands, including some big brands, have got a serious flaw in the API. So you can mess around with things. You can change a password and registered email address, and then you can log in as the owner. And I think this affected Toyota, some major brand. Yeah, Toyota, Prius, Kia, Range Rover, Mazda. Those are pretty big brands. And you could totally take over people's accounts and take over their car, and you could turn off the engine while they're driving and mess, it sounds really serious. So I guess they're going to have.
If they have OnStar enabled.
I don't think this was working through OnStar, but it sounds like a similar, some kind of internet connectivity. I think OnStar is the GM solution, and they have their alternative, but it has a vulnerability in the API. So Citrix has had people unauthorized in their Citrix network, and all the big companies use Citrix. But of course, what's interesting is it's not really their fault. They think this is credential stuffing. This is the new hotness. Now that so many people have dumped huge databases and dumped them online, if people reuse passwords, they take the password stolen from one company and use it to get in your account at another. And that's what they think happened to Citrix. And arguably, there's nothing Citrix can do about this. Although now there is. There's a product I was telling people about at RSA they didn't know about. I thought everybody knew. Have I been owned? There is an online database here of all the known stolen passwords. And there's even an API you can connect to your Windows domain controller. So when people create accounts, it checks to see if that password has already been leaked. And it won't let you make an account where the password has been leaked. So if you didn't want people to do credential stuffing attacks, one defense would be to take the passwords that your customers use and make sure they're not on this list. And then it would be more difficult for that to happen. So that's why it's here. And it is, as far as I know, the best defense against that attack.
In fact, you can't just download the database file and run some program locally.
Well, yes, but I think he doesn't let you do that. But anyway, so, all right. So that's, but he does have some tool for where you can try, because the idea, if you could download the database, it would make it too easy for the criminals. So they're trying to hit some happy medium. I think what you can do is hash it and set up a hash and it'll tell you who's there, but they don't let you download the whole database.
So there's other places you probably could get the database.
Well, of course, all these are ones that were public at one time. He's just a guy that has made it his business to hunt down all the public databases and gather them and put them in an indexable search engine. All right, so Odoo is yet another database server of some kind, which I'm not really sure. Whatever it is, it reminds me of Mongo. It's something that stores a lot of data and apparently is very insecure by default. It has a default password, and he found a way to just go to Shodan and search for the page that says you still have the default password. And the presence of that page strongly implies that they have the default password. Now, what's interesting is this person who did this research appears to think that they are not breaking the law by doing this, which is what I used to think about 5 years ago, that if you find a default login and you do not log in, you haven't broken the law. Then I talked to my lawyer about in America, you've broken the law by doing this. Because in America, you do not have to go into anybody's account to break the law. All you have to do is send a request to a server of any kind and have a reply that causes you to gain information you're not authorized to have. And that's exactly what this does. It is, of course, if you could defend yourself, but you have technically, one could interpret this as violating the CFAA, which is why many, many people in the security community are very unhappy with the CFAA. The CFAA essentially outlaws all security research of all kinds. And the government knows it, and they're kind of helpless to do anything about it because writing the law is very difficult. But anyway, he did find many, many wide open machines, many in America. US is here, 9,500, 23% of them are in America, all over the place. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Only 139.
Yep, this is by percentage. So something like 20% of all the servers out there, 10, 20,000 servers are wide open, all full of stuff. And if he wanted to go further, he could log in the default credentials, download all the stuff, and make another one of those huge dumps. And some researchers would do that. Some criminals would do that. He didn't go any further than this, but it certainly is the issue. And now, what can you do? So he's trying to inform people, disclosing people, trying to figure out what to do. Typically, the best thing you can do in a case like this is get the manufacturer to try to push out an update telling everybody you should change your password. People have learned not to do this. Microsoft did this in 2005. You shouldn't have any kind of product that installs with a default password. During the installation, you should force the user to choose a password. That is the way you prevent this nonsense. Because if you don't make them, a good number will just click next, 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 and think it's okay when it's not okay. Anyway, all right. So I think we're up to the official time of class. I'm going to skip the rest of the news and go up here. So there's a quiz due today, but I moved it to next week because I didn't get the quiz written until this morning. Sorry about that. So you got till next week. I know, sorry. I intended to do it earlier, but there's been a lot happening, so I'm late. So anyway, now they're all up. All the quizzes for the whole rest of the course are up. And so And the homeworks are up. I didn't yet write another boss of the NOC, but I saw only a couple of people have done this. So you can do all the normal projects and you can do the boss of the SOC. And I'm hoping to have a couple more of these. And I'm talking to a man at Splunk to see if they will come here and run a CTF for us on the last day. And that might happen. We might be able to have the official Splunk people here with prizes and swag and everything. If not, I can do it myself using open source stuff. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know.
What's the difference between the NOC and the SOC again?
I thought they were essentially the same, but apparently, I asked them that. And apparently, boss of the NOC is their non-security oriented product where it's for performance, where you're finding out what's causing errors on the servers and such. And the SOC is security hacks. So they have both. And in my opinion, they're both pretty much equally valuable as training. So if they don't come here to do the new boss of the SOC, I'll probably bring down the old open source boss of the NOC and use that for a contest. But we'll have some kind of contest on the last day because I think we'll have no trouble covering all the material by then. And the real reason I taught this course and got excited was because of that CTF. The course itself, you might have noticed, is kind of dull. It's just learning how to use the tools inside there, which is important but not very exciting. The contest is more fun. And it shows you, in my opinion, the real power of the product more, the contest does, than the class. So anyway, we're down here. Today it's module 7, 8, and 9, I think. All right, because these modules are pretty short. And I wonder if I can view this in full screen or something. Let's try that. All right, so here's most of the best practices they talk about at Splunk are to conserve server time. Apparently, it is a huge problem that in real enterprise deployments, too many people are searching inefficiently and the server bogs down. Even in the competition, the server's sometimes bogged down. So they talk about how to make your search faster. And as I said, when I first put up my own little cheap cloud server for the extra credit projects in this class, I was afraid it would just freeze up. And until I learned to write the projects and tell you to start out with like sampling only 1%, it wasn't fast enough. So you have to do something to make it faster. So in general, filtering by time is the most efficient thing. Let's see what people say here. I thought I saw a chat message come by. All right, somehow the full screen is hiding it. That's all right. Let's see if I can somehow dig down to the chat. There it is. From last class, do you plan to set up a doc on Splunk server setup? Well, I suppose I could, but I'm not sure you need to. Because you can just, it's in your project. You'll set up a Splunk server yourself in like the chat module 1 or 2. And it's just that. But I might put it up. It's a good point. The only thing that's not included in the Splunk documents is how to load the sample data from Splunk. And I do know how to do that. So it's a thought. I may write that up if people are interested so you can set up your own. I don't think you need to. My cloud server is good enough. I thought you'd all have to make your own local ones, but I'm not sure that's necessary. However, I'm glad you bring it up. I may write it up. Anyway, so time is your main filter. Filtering by time is one way to get there. Having more search terms is good. So error in SSHD, then of course, just like in Google, if you have more terms, it'll find less hits. Including is better than excluding because the category of things that have access denied is much bigger than things that have not something because not is of course bigger and it will include things where that field doesn't even exist if you're referring to a field. Filter early. Remove duplicate events, then sort. You know, if you understand what's happening, and the same thing's true of object-oriented things like PowerShell, if you just memorize strings and type them without understanding them, you're going to do foolish things. If you actually understand what it is, it starts with the giant database, then it executes the first search, and that filters it down, then you pipe it to the next stage and pipe it to the next stage, which is exactly how PowerShell works. And if you understand that you are creating an object and then filtering within that object, you can design your operation to be more efficient and more accurate. All right, so wildcards are dangerous. Wildcards at the end of a string are the most efficient because it's very easy to search for first few characters. Wildcard at the beginning or the center are much more vague and much more difficult to search for. Or is better than wildcards, of course, cheaper for the server. And of course, you should always have an index. They recommend this. Then you limit what index you're looking at, and you can sort your data into different indices. In this class, you have to specify index equal bots v1 for the extra credit stuff, or you won't see the right data anyway. In the homework that you get from Spunk to go with the online course, you always have to have index equal, I think, main or something, the default there. Anyway, you can put a wildcard in index, but that's not a common situation. And you can search without an index. That's when I first started using Splunk. I just use it like Google. I just put a phone thing in there like password, and you can do it. They don't like it because it uses more server time, but you can find things that way, just without paying any attention to syntax or anything. Just put in a couple keywords and search for things. All right, so the index is always there. Everything in Splunk comes from some kind of index. That's where it's stored. And so in this case, no index was indicated in search. They just did product name equals Dream Crusher, so they got 2 index values. If you click on the value, there's something called web and something called sales. And the people that enter the data into your system choose how to sort it in indexes. So this can be any way your company likes to do it. And then there's the search language. But say, this is why I loved Splunk so much, probably because I used to be a database administrator for years. So it's very familiar territory to me. This is what I spent most of my time doing, is just searching, and you have a syntax. And it's very much like Microsoft Office Access or MySQL. So here's how you specify the index, specify the things to search for, like source type. Then you have conditions like status equals 503, and then a pipe. So you do this query, and that creates a data object with thousands of results, and then you pipe it and do something more. This is going to do statistics of it. So it's going to count how many in some category. It's going to add the price and call that lost revenue, and then it's going to evaluate that equal dollars plus toString just to format it so it looks like money. That's what this long thing would do. One step, pipe to another step, pipe to another step, just like a Unix command, where you'd pipe one things to another. And here's the various things you have, clauses and arguments and functions and commands and so on. And Splunk tries to help you by coloring some of them. Commands are blue, and things like as show up in pink or orange or whatever that is, purple for functions, and so on. Yeah?
Will it still work if we use Shift and Enter button?
Shift Enter, I think, just moves you to another line.
Yeah.
It's just a formatting issue. Yes, you can put it all in one line, or you can press Shift Enter, and then it'll break to a new line for each after each pipe, and they both have the same effect. It's just to make it look pretty. Good. All right, so you got search terms. That's what you're looking for. Commands do things. Functions calculate things like a sum or average. There are arguments to specify what fields you're working on and such, and then a lot of clauses. Splunk supports a lot of things which I thought were sort of frivolous, like renaming things, but they aren't, of course, because there's the technicians that want to see the real field name, whatever it is, and then there's management and sales that just want some simple word they can understand. And it is quite important to be able to format it and rename things to other names. So it's there. So if you start with the disk with everything on it, it does some search, makes an intermediate results, then another and another, your final results. So you start by fetching events, then you summarize into the top 10 users. Top and rare give you the top 10 and the bottom 10, just like David Letterman, the default is 10. And then you can pick out certain fields. So you start with all the things where something failed. You find the top 10 users that had these failures, and then you find sorted into percents, and now you have a table of which 10 users are causing the most trouble, and here's the percentage of trouble they're causing, and that may help you send a customer off to visit, a customer representative off to visit them because they're having so much trouble, or whatever it is that's appropriate. So that's what this is. Shift Enter will spread this out like that. Put an enter after each. Shift Enter will do this. I get you to a new line. We talked about the coloring. Boolean operators are orange and so on. And you can turn that coloring off if you like. I have to do that a lot when I'm teaching Kali because the colors don't project very well. But if you have a nice monitor, you probably want them to help you. Now, you can return a table of data, and then you'll see something like this. So you have objects and usually some kind of count somewhere, although it can vary. Saw a blinking thing. It was not a chat message. All right. I mentioned you can rename things. So I can rename product ID as capital product ID, action as customer action. And this is cosmetic, but cosmetics really matter if you want to communicate to the non-technical people in your company, like your managers and sales staff. And customers, you want to have some kind of status page that doesn't give them baffling technical terms, but nice readable labels on things. Well, if you do rename a field, then after you rename product ID as product ID, you can't refer to it by the old name anymore. It only has one name at any given time. So after you rename it, all further references to it have to refer to it by the new name. So here's where you have a table with product ID small case, then I rename it, and then I have actions going on down here. All right, so here we will have no results found Table, right, because I renamed action as customer action, and here I tried to make a table of action, but there is no action anymore. I've renamed it, so you don't find anything. Here, I've renamed action as customer action, and I look for a table of customer action, so I see the results. That's all. The rename is not just cosmetics, it's the real name of the object you created, which is then passed to the next stage. Fields, where you pick out the fields you want to see, you can include them with fields plus, you can remove them with fields minus, and then you'll see those fields. So here, I can say, this is a thing that finds all the security entries with fail, star, or invalid, and gives me everything about them. And here's one that picks only certain fields to come out of it. And the result is it's much faster. You find the total number of events in both cases, because this is just saying how much to tell me about each event, but it saves a lot of time to see only some of the fields. So it doesn't, logically, the search stage should be the same, but the later stage will be faster. It won't have to handle as much data. There's a dedupe command to find unique items. Remove the dupes, and you can specify by what fields you want to dedupe it. So here I've got beach games and beach games and more beach games. And if I run it through dedupe, I just have one entry of beach games. So that's a way to find unique values. And here I can dedupe by vendor and vendor city. And that means this combined object is unique. So I have beach games in Miami, and I also have a line for beach games in Fort Lauderdale. Because if either one of those items changes, then it's a unique record. All right. You can sort, ascending or descending. If you don't specify, you can limit the results to whatever you want. And minus is descending, plus is ascending. So you can have multiple layers of sort, of course. So this will be decreasing by category ID and then increasing by product name. We talked about that. All right. So here's decreasing by vendor and increasing by vendor city. So I expect these from beauty to beach. That looks like positive to me. I expected that to be the other way. All right. This vendor city is alphabetical. Oh, this is backwards, BEA, BEU. Good. So this is backwards alphabetical on vendor and positive alphabetical on vendor city. And if I have a vendor with two products, there goes forward alphabetical over here. That's what I want expected to see with minus vendor and plus vendor city. And here's dedupe on vendor and vendor city, then make a table, then sort by minus vendor and plus vendor city. All right, not sure what the point of that was. Anyway, so that's that stuff. And then there's the transforming commands. These are the things that give you data summaries. This is what I spent my life doing as a database engineer. There were some famous tricks we did to find errors in databases. We always had money, so you'd have the total amount of money this way, the total amount of money that way, compare them and see if they match. So the top command just gives you the top largest, most common items. So this IP occurs this many times, that IP occurs that many times. By default, it will give you the value that you're counting, the number of them, and the percentage of total that they represent. You can change that, but that's the default information. So if you just want to find out which IP had the most of these events, like which had the most failed logins or anything else, you do it that way. All right. Then, if you don't specify limit equals 20, you get to top 10. So the most common constraints are limit, count field, and show perk. Limit determines how many items to show. You put limit equals 20, you'll get 20. You put limit equals 0, you'll get all of them. Any other number in between, you get the number you specify. And count field and show perk are used to control these fields. Do you want this count field? Do you want this percentage field? You can turn it on or off, that's all. So here's limit equals 5, counting source IP. All right. Hey there. All right. Strange influx of people. All right. Something else must have happened. What, were you somewhere else?
We were all down in zone 37, and then we tried to look at 300 as well.
Oh my goodness, no, we've been here right from the first class.
Right.
I thought I didn't have to leave a sign down there. Maybe I did. All right.
Professor Sam,
yeah.
On your website, it still on the main page, it still says move to 37.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. All right.
Okay.
Well, it's all right. That explains why many people are showing up. All right. Well, all right. In any case, The thing you probably missed that you had to care most about is I delayed the quiz by another week because if you tried to do the quiz, it didn't exist until this morning. So anyway, all right.
So that was the quiz that was due today.
Yeah, I moved them to next week. Yeah. And by the way, there is no punishment for doing them late. So in the 1 unit course, I'm less ruthless about it.
So we can do them in about 5 years' time and still get credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right. So you can control whether the show percentage appears there or not. And down here, you've got this uncategorized URL. So let me set up a few of these in the online database. So here's the online boss of the SOC database we've been using. So if I do index equal boss of the SOCs version 1 and search, I find 9,000 events, and that's because I'm only looking at 1% of them. There are 900,000 events on this server. So this is everything. So now let's find something interesting. Here's file name, registry type, and event type. That's what I found before. So if I click registry type, I'll see there are some registry events, and these are coming from the Microsoft logs. So you can create a key, set value, and delete a key. And there's various types of events here, network, communicate, and so on. So if I wanted to find out information about this registry type, I might type this to top registry type. That should work, I think. Registry underscore type. Got to get that right. Let's see how that looks. Okay, and there they are. These are the top 3 registry types. 3 things happen, and here's the count, and there's the percent. So I could turn off the show count and the show percent. Should be show perk equals false, I think. And set to a T. Show perk equals F. Okay, that's percentage. And what about the other one? Count. Count field. All right. Count field will rename it, but how do you get rid of it? I'm not quite sure how you get rid of it, but anyway, let's try the show perk equals T and see what that looks like. That shows the percent, and F should be false. And that does it. That gets rid of the percentage. Now all I have is the count. So that's one thing you can do. Now I should be able to do a combination of 2 items here. So I'm going to go back to my original one. And I have registry type and event type. So let's try this event type that has 31 different values. And I'm going to do events with this field. That's an easy way to get here. Now I have events that have that field, and now I can pipe top for that. And all right, I get rid of the equal star. Equal star is inappropriate over here. Here, let's see how that works. There we go. So now I've got the top 10 event types with counts and percentages. And now I should be able to combine that with source type. What was it? Source underscore type? Okay, so I should be able to add that to source underscore type. I think I might have that wrong though. We're going to see. No results found. I got to go back. Okay. Let's go back to here and find out what it is. I think I spelled the name wrong. It's registry underscore type. Okay. Now I might be able to get to my old search with search history, but it's too much bother. Registry type and tag event type. I'm going to go back this way. Okay. And okay, so it's pipe. Pop. Okay. Tag event type. And registry type. Let's see how that works. Yeah, now I've got the combination of event type and registry type, and I found the top 10 of them. So here's Windows create key, Windows set value, and Windows delete key. They're all in the top 10. And there are a lot of these, more than 10. So now I should be able to play with limits. Limit equals 20. And now, maybe I only have 10 of them. Let's try a smaller number like limit equals 3. All right, and if I want them all, it's limit equals 0, which is far from obvious, but that's the way it is. All right, so that's the sort of stuff. And by the way, the alternative of top is rare, not bottom for no good reason, but anyway, rare. Those are the least common items. The 3 on the bottom, 15 of each of these things happened. All right.
And when it's doing top or rare, is it doing it of the combination of the two?
Yes, yes, of the combination. So you make a tuple and then search for that. That's all right, good. So that's what that stuff is. You can rename it, by the way. I could rename count field to be something else. Here's count. So I could make it count field equals something more informative, like losers. And then I fouled it up somehow. What did, oh, I spelled it wrong. That'll do it. Okay. Still doesn't like it. Oh, because I put, well, maybe I got to put it elsewhere. I don't think the order matters, though. Let's try this. Count field equals, looks right. What did I do wrong?
Your equal sign should be directly next to the D.
Well, I could try that. Yeah, I thought that didn't matter, but let's see. Maybe it does. You might very well be right. Let's see. You are right. Good. So now this is losers. Good. All right. Good. So that's rare. And now then we got stats. And this is so you can have statistics that count things. I can count the number of events. Distinct count is even more fun. So let's see if I can carry on with these same choices. If I do stats count, I think it will let me do this with nothing else. It'll just count the total number of events. 9,528 events, and there they are, 9,528 events. This seems completely pointless, but it's useful if you want to have this one number in a display for management or something. But I might want to count by something is much more likely, and that would be the, you can have as clause to rename it, but what I think more interesting is to tell it what to count and then have by. So if I wanted to count something, I would have to choose something to count. Let's go back to the raw data. I'm going to save that in the clipboard and go back here. And let's carry on here. So I want to count, say, registry type. Let's count file name by registry type. So I will count items that have a file name only, and I will sort them by registry type. So that would be count file name. And I think I got to put it in parentheses. We're going to play with it a bit by registry type. Okay, see how that looks? That's what I wanted. And now I have 3 entries, and I've counted the number of file names, but where's the registry type? All right. It doesn't seem to be there. Let's see if I fouled it up. Count, stats count by, okay. Count, so, all right, let's try count by. I don't need the file name there. Is registry type the wrong name? No, here's the registry type, and there's the count. That's what I wanted. Okay, it was fine. The thing I counted is what mattered. If I put something here that is, now I'm going to count every record, no matter what's in it. The other one, I'll count only records that have a non-zero value in the thing. That is what you expect. That's a chart. Okay. And I could add another field here, like the one we did before, and then I get a more complicated table. All right. So then you can do distinct count. So let's do a count of something that is, this is going to count how many unique values. I guess we can do that right now. So here I have 3 values, but if I do distinct, so distinct count of this, okay. So if I do count of registry type, this should work. Count of registry type is going to give me 683. There are 683 events out of these 9,500 that had registry type, but a distinct count is going to tell me how many of those are different, and that answer is 3. So those are important numbers to have. 3 different values repeated many times to add up to 600 total values. I can add fields. Let's see if we have a numeric field in our data here. I'm going to go back and see what we've got that might be a numeric field. We got bytes. I could add that up. That might be the only thing we have in this kind of data. I don't think this data has dollar amounts or anything very logically. So let's add up bytes. Bytes should be a numeric field. Let's click on it, see what kind of values it has. 0, 34, well, it looks pretty numeric. So let's select this field. That'll move it up here, so it's handier to work with. And then get rid of that box. And now I could do, say, pipe top bytes. See how that looks? Okay, here's the top values of bytes. All right, now let's do it by, what was one of those other fields? Registry type, I think. Good. Then we should have something. And maybe there are no events that have bytes and registry type in the same field. So let's go here and find fields that contain bytes. Bytes equals star will give me events that contain bytes. And I have to have equals here. There. That will give me fields that contain bytes. Okay. And let's take a look at these and see what else they have. They have bytes in, I want something, they have something called destmac. That'll do. There's 8 different values of that. Let's have events with that field. Okay, so now I've got bytes and destmac. So now I should be able to sum. Let's go back here. It is stats sum bytes, okay? Stats sum bytes. And I'm going to do it by destmac. That should do it. I should now get the total number of bytes that went to each of those devices. And that's something you might reasonably want to know. So this one got that many bytes, this one got that many bytes, and so on. That's the sort of thing that you want to be able to do. All right. And so they say this is going to do adding up in the sales and source type vendor, adding up total price as units sold, and the price as total sales by product name, and then sorting by total sales. So you have units sold and total sales for each game that you're selling. You can average, of course, as well as totaling. You might want that sometimes. And you can do lists that will list all the field values. Again, like distinct count, a list of unique values, I think, not duplicates. And then that's right, values list unique values. You can format it. You can color code things. You'll find an option someplace to do that. Let's see if I can do that. Color is there, so that should be here. I should have the option to color things. So that, well, I guess I can color one. Oh boy, I can really make it complicated. Number formatting disabled. Let's enable that. Sure. Yeah, it's going to look ridiculous, but let's see how that is. There we are. Now I have 3 decimal places and color. You know, this stuff really matters for sales and marketing and management. You know, the technical guys say, this is dumb, I just want the numbers. But when you present it to normal people, this stuff really matters. I worked at a company, an escrow agency for years, and I was the technical guy. And another guy next to me learned how to use all the Excel formatting features. And his stuff was so beautiful, and mine was such garbage that I learned from him. I'd just make a table and call it done, and he would then go put in the lines and the borders and the colors. It looked a lot better. So it's not a waste of your time to learn this stuff. All right. And that is all the stuff in these chapters. So let me go to here and just point out where we're at. You should be taking the quizzes, doing the online stuff, doing the canned projects that the book gave you, and that's what all these are, and it'll go automatically in the Canvas, and you should get to work on these extra credit. Only a couple of students have been doing it. It's really a lot of fun. So go here, and there's various puzzles to solve, which I showed you last time, and I'm going to be writing more of these soon because now I'm finally, RSA is over, and I got some time to focus on things. So these are interesting things. You're finding the file name that was used to deface a web server and the attackers and the scanner they used to attack the web server and all that. This is very relevant stuff in a very nice data set. So check these things out, and I will have more. And so we're not much future in this class. We're here. There's 2 more lectures like this, and then a competition, a CTF of one kind and another. I got a Splunk contact that may come here. If you get Splunk to show up, they will be here with prizes and professional people and high-class servers and everything. And if they don't come, I'll have my cheap imitation version using a cloud server like this, but we'll have some kind of contest on that day for extra credit. You're not required to do it. because to get the Splunk certificate, you do not need to do this boss of the SOC stuff. For a certificate, all you have to do is learn the stuff in those slides. But the stuff in those slides is kind of dull. And it's a lot more fun to do the real CTF where you see it actually find real attacks. And that convinced me it's fun to do. But that goes significantly beyond the surge. But I think it's a lot more practical for the real world. We got some chat coming in. The equal sign is as, all right. My Splunk expires tomorrow. Oh, yes. Yes, that's a very common problem. When your Splunk expires, there are two solutions. In the Splunk documentation, they say there is some way to convert your Splunk license to a free license. And I looked at that, and in 5 minutes, I couldn't figure it out. So I just uninstalled it and reinstalled it and got another 2 months. That works. For what we're doing, that's probably good enough. Yeah, just downloaded it again. Yeah. Equal rather than as. Equal is not the same thing as as. Equal is what determines a field value. And I'm glad you bring this up. Let me try it now. So if I have a query here, let's have equals. Like, let's go back to the original situation and then find something here like maybe these registry things. This will be fine. Registry type. So if I do this, it's going to find registry type equals create key. That's only certain values. Now, as is not the same as equals all. I do as foo. That's how you rename a field. So here, I've got create key. If I do that, it's going to rename it to foo. I think you'll only see it if I have a report, though. So let's do registry type equals create key, and then count. There's registry type, and what else was there? Registry event or something. Let me get my raw data again. I've got registry type, and then I have tag event type. So I'm going to take events with this field, and then I'm going to do this just to get it up on the events with this field. Now I've got them up here, so I don't have to remember and type them. So now I'm going to set registry event type equals something, and that would be, say, create key. So I avoid typing. I'll have less mistakes. So I'm going to get the ones that have create key, and then I'm going to stats count. Let's just do top. Top is easier. Okay. Top registry type. Top tag event type. There, let's try that. That should do it. I should have the ones that have create key, and here's the top event type, so I have several of them. And now I could put in it as reason. That just changes the name of this field. Cough it up. Hey. Well, what did I do wrong? Maybe you can't do it with top. Let's try stats count. Oh, yeah, all right. I'm glad you brought this up. Let me go back in my slides. There's a way to rename in just a separate field, and that's the way to do this. Let me go back. I saw an example back here I'd like to work from where you have a separate rename. So this will be fields. Yeah, fields. And around here, there's a thing just to rename there. Rename product ID as ID. That's what I want. So let's do that. Let's go back to this. And this was going to be top. Okay, so now I've got the event type. Now I could do rename, tag event type. Should work. We're going to see as type. Okay, and now nothing's found because I've renamed it. I now have to do top type. There, and now I've got the same chart, but I changed that name. So as renames things, equals looks for a match. They're quite different. No, you're not. A few more chats coming in. Let's see what they're saying. Okay, right, that's it. Just download it again. The online course. Oh, the online course. Yes, if your online course expires after 30 days, then you hopefully saved it. And if you did not, I saved my copy and put it on my website. And you can get in. I'm not sure I remember the name and password. Let me find out. Hopefully some of you folks remember. Maybe I shouldn't put it in the video. how in the world am I going to get it to the online people? Email me. Send an email to CNIT.50, and I'll give you the name and password if you need it. It is on my website. See, I'm not supposed to distribute it, so I don't want to get Splunk mad at me. So rather than just make it available to the whole world, I put it on this page, and I will. If you send me an email, I will send you the name and password to get it. So if you go down, that's what this stuff is: archived class materials. That requires a name and password, which is the name is CNIT student, and the password I'll tell you in email, but not on this video. And then you can see my saved stuff, which is exactly the same stuff you're using, which I archived. So if your 30 days expires and you didn't save a local copy, you can get my saved copy, which, by the way, these lecture materials I'm using right here, I'm not all say generated for Sandbound, not for distribution, because they're the same things you get in the online course. And I saved them so I could use them in class after the 30 days ran over. All right, good. Let's see if there's anything else coming in from the chat. I think you can skip through. Yeah, you do not have to do the modules in order particularly. All right, anything else? Well, I guess that's it for this. I'm going to stop the share. I'll go to the lab and help anybody who wants to help down there. We'll always be in this room, 200. So don't try anywhere else.
The next class, the last one, or the one after that?
There are actually 3 more, but the next class covers almost all the remaining modules. The last class, just 1 more, and the one after that will be a CTF.
Okay,
And it'll be optional for extra credit.
I'll come.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's probably more fun than the rest of the class.